Climate change is destroying our world. Unprecedented wildfires have been devastating America, Turkey, Greece, and many others. The last 6 years were the warmest 6 years on record, and we are facing massive species devastation and extinction. We could think that maybe we are fixing it, we're doing the best we can to tackle it, but that's not the case. While we reduced our emissions by 8%, a record in 2020, this year we're bound to make it all up and to pollute as much as we did 2 years before. And the cherry on top of the cake, the last IPCC report on the climate shows that we are basically screwed. But despite all of this information, I am not panicking. Neither are you. I'm not saying that you should be, but you're not. Maybe you feel worried or disencouraged, but not terrified. Why is that? Today, I'll try to show you that the psychological tools that we use to deal with the inevitability of climate change are the same that we use to deal with the inevitability of death. My name is Lorenzo, and this is the psychology of everything. Humans are the only species capable of understanding that death is inevitable, that one day the sun will set for the last time. But despite this, people usually aren't constantly panicking about death. This fact is explained by terror management theory, or TMT. TMT was born in the 80s when its creators were dissatisfied with the field of social psychology. They believed that the field treated humans as rational automatons, as robots, neglecting their emotions and motivations, and that is why TMT was born. This theory posits that knowledge of certain death in an animal built to avert it, us, creates an ever-present potential for intense anxiety or terror, which must be managed continuously. Basically, people have to defend themselves from their perception of their own mortality. There are two broad categories of psychological defenses triggered by mortality salience: proximal and distal ones. Proximal defenses include denial, reminds you of something, distraction, and rationalization. Pretty straightforward. Distal defenses are a bit more tricky. They are more symbolic and indirect ways of dealing with our own mortality. You probably already heard the expression, every person should plant a tree, have a child, and write a book. These all live on after us, ensuring a measure of immortality. The tree, the child, and the book are all examples of distal defenses, which, rather than pushing the problem of death out of consciousness or rationalizing it away into the distant future, distal defenses provide security by making one's life seem meaningful, valuable, and enduring. Distal defenses are ways of enhancing our self-esteem, ways of making us feel important, to feel immortal by having contributed in enduring ways to our society. No wonder that one type of distal defenses is called a hero project. These hero projects may include anything from philanthropy and fame to parenthood, providing individuals with social recognition and a sense of importance that will extend beyond their biological existence. So, now that you have a basic understanding of terror management theory, let me answer the question: why aren't you panicking about this, and this, and this? To be honest, when I first had the idea for this video, I thought I was a genius, that no one had ever made the connection between climate change and terror management theory. But I guess I'm not a genius. Actually, a scientific paper had already been published about this, which made my job a lot easier. Basically, according to this paper, you're not panicking about climate change because you have the exact same psychological defenses that you have against death. Well, not death, but panicking about death. So, when it comes to proximal defenses, there isn't a shortage of climate change deniers. But even those who aren't deniers can still use this psychological defense. How can this happen? We can deny that the consequences of climate change will be as severe and damaging as scientists report. We can believe that a magical technological solution will arrive and fix everything, basically denying the importance and the severity of climate change. We can also easily get distracted by our daily lives, by our jobs. We can just keep on living our lives, keep going to our jobs, making YouTube videos or watching them. We can engage in rationalizations by believing we won't be personally affected or that climate change won't hit as hard where we live, that our children won't suffer through it. Unfortunately, these beliefs are likely unreal and implausible, and they completely mirror TMT. But that's not all. Distal defenses can also be witnessed when dealing with climate change. People worried about the climate can easily engage in hero projects. They can engage in meaningful work, in projects that they believe will have an impact, which allows them to deal with their panic and anxiety through action. Let me give you an example.
Big problem, I lost a lot of weight because I was just so depressed, nothing seemed to matter anymore. And but then I started to come back, to become better, to feel better, and a reason for that was because I saw that there are actually things you can do, and I realized that I can do things. Then I became a climate activist, and that helped a lot. And I think the more involved I became, the more involved I got in the climate movement, the better I feel, the happier I feel, because I feel like I'm doing something important, something meaningful.
Because I feel I'm doing something important, something meaningful. As you can see, Greta's ways of dealing with her anxiety, with her panicking, was through action, not through denial, rationalization, or distraction. The reality is that the tools that we have at our disposal to deal with panicking about climate change are varied, and some are better than others. I hope that your takeaway from this video is not that you should be panicking about climate change. Far from it. Actually, studies show that fear-mongering and anxiety are not good drivers of effective behaviors. While we can't avoid the worst consequences of death, which are dying, I guess, we can still avoid the worst consequences of climate change if we act. Because there's really nothing we can do about our own mortality. Engaging in distraction, rationalization, and denial aren't likely to cause any harm. But similarly to death, climate change is a reality that we all must face. And while we could engage in empty denial, while we could engage in pointless rationalizations, or while we could just keep distracting ourselves from it, in this case there's actually something we could do if we acted. So if I may ask you, instead of using these psychological tools to soothe your anxiety, please act as strongly as you can. Because the world can't take any more denial, rationalizing, or distraction. If you don't really know what to do and how to act, I'll leave a video in the description on how to act. Take care and see you next time.